Rightio, welcome back. I'm doing another video today. I'm going to attempt to do Moussaka. It doesn't matter how many times you try to pronounce it. I never feel like I'm ever saying it right. I probably should use an accent with it, but we'll stick to that. We're going to look at doing it in the Weber. So it's sort of a different style to what I've normally done. I usually try to use a travel buddy, but this time I'm going with the Weber. Got a bit more of a setup today. And see how it ends up. I've done a couple of practices at home and it's come up alright. This is the first time I'm in the bush, so I reckon it'll come up pretty good. We're going to look at cutting the eggplants up first. I salt them for a little bit, extracts a bit of the bitterness out of them before you layer it. Depends on the dish you use. I'm using a glass Pyrex today. Cut the end of it off. Cut it in half. And then slowly slice it into 10mm pieces. Doesn't matter so much. We do cook it for a long time and it eventually goes soft. So if they're a bit thicker or thinner, look, doesn't really matter. Unless you're a bit of a perfectionist, that's probably where you're going to go wrong and expect them to be spot on, but they don't need to be. Going to do something that a lot of people are probably going to frown upon. I'm just going to put it on the bench and salt them like this, because at home I'd usually use an oven tray. Might not have an oven tray with me, which is probably why we're doing it this way. But hey, let's see if it works. I did wipe it down. It is clean. Much to probably a lot of people going, gross, can't do that, but I'm not that phased. And as I'm cutting it, I notice they are getting a bit more sporadic with the thicknesses. I've gone with two. I'm going to cut up two today. I've always found that sort of using one, you're never quite at the right layering that you'd probably like it to be. That's one thing I like about this dish is by the time it's finished, you actually don't notice how odd your pieces are. It all just becomes one thing. I'm testing out a couple of new items for the camera kit. As you've probably seen in my last few videos, I had a few sound issues with wind. I've got waves breaking in the background. Don't know how it's going to pan out, so I hope you guys can hear me. Alright, so we're getting there. One thing I have noticed with this dish is eggplants can be quite pricey. I mean, I went to go buy one a few months ago, and I guess they were out of season. They're like $6 an eggplant, but summertime here in Perth, they're $2.50 to $3 an eggplant. Not a horrible price to pay for a big dish, which feeds as many people as you like. It's quite a cheap dish, as opposed to steak. It is a bit of a talking point between everyone, because people are like, oh, you need meat with this. You don't need it. It actually comes up pretty good. Sometimes you don't always have to have meat with a dish. And the flavours that come out of it are great. So it's sorry boys, you're just going to have to not eat meat this time. Move that cutting board out the way. Layer them out. Move those out the way. So just salt them as much as you can. This will just draw out the moisture with it. Takes a bit, maybe half an hour if you have the time. Fortunate today that flies aren't so much an issue as they have been. Logue, Brooke, this time of year can be full of marsh flies and it's just a horrible experience, but somehow today we've fluked a good day. That's not annoying us too much. Flip them over. Sometimes I put paper towel over them to help draw the moisture out, but I'm not really too worried today. And this process probably doesn't even need to be done. But I've always sort of done it with eggplant. They can be quite bitter. Don't oversalt them, don't put them in a salty bath like you would with oysters. But just enough to help draw that bitterness out. I won't reach over and struggle this time, I'll walk up. So yeah, we'll let them sit for a while, and I'll start the sauce and go from there. Leave them like that. Keep an eye on the flies. Flies are going on it. Put a tea towel on it or paper towels. Work something out. Rightio, so I've just cut up the onion and the garlic, and I mean it's pretty rough as to what I've done. I've pre-lit the barbecue. Put a bit of oil in the pan. I've been using this Weber pan for a bit now, and I'm a big fan of it. Because you don't lose everything through the grills. So I'll just put the garlic in there. Give it a bit of a seasoning, a sizzle. Stir it around a bit. Give this a bit of a head start. Bit of onion in there. I'm not really phased. It's nice and hot. One thing I love about the Weber pan is it comes with a handle that detaches, and it makes it easy to pack up. It's a good heat there. I think I've got that on pretty much high. Yeah, pretty much on high. Might even turn that down a little bit. It's coming up good. Chuck the onion in. Cut up probably, it's a whole onion, but I'd say it's a whole small onion. I'd rather use a medium to a larger onion for this, because there's a fair bit of sauce that you come up with. Don't over oil it. Break up those big bits. Thereabouts. Close the lid on that. Let it catch up. Take the handle off, which I thought might have fitted on the lid, but it doesn't. What I've got with it is a whole can of tomatoes. Just pour that in once that's sort of had its head start. Crisp, get a bit of flavour through the onion. Raw onion tastes horrible, so we're cooking it and go on from there. Might let that brown a bit longer. Beautiful. One thing I do love about cooking out here is you make a mess cutting up what you want, it falls on the ground, yeah, you lose a bit, but that's all part of camping, I find. You make a bit of a mess and it's not something you're going to stand in for the rest of the night. Rightio. So that's browning up. Browning up pretty good there. Just pour the can of that in. Beautiful. So we'll let that simmer down and reduce for a bit. Put the lid down on it. Maybe 15-20 minutes, come back, check it, give it another stir, and you sort of just want to reduce a fair bit of that moisture out of it. That's why I do the eggplant first, that's why you're making this, you get a bit of time up your sleeve to relax. Put the lid on it, and we'll go from there. Rightio, so it's been cooking for probably 20 minutes now, it's reduced down pretty well. I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to char grill these eggplants a bit, just to give them a bit of colour and add a bit of flavour to the moussaka as we go. So yeah, you're just sort of cooking the sauce, cooking the onion. Yeah, probably needed another 5 minutes when I was cooking the onion just to get a bit more browner, but live and you learn. So we'll take that off. Chuck that over here. You'll probably see that I've got two oils on the go at the moment. I've got one that's got propellant in it, that is butane, and the other one that isn't. I use that one when it's on the barbecue so it doesn't flare up, as you'll see. Let's give them a light spray of oil. Once again, I'm sure a lot of people are cringing that I'm spraying this on the table. Some people would cringe, but not so much me. So yeah, just grab them. A fair bit of moisture's coming out of them. It's running down the plate. Chuck them on there. Let's get a bit of brown through them. Like I say, it's a bit more of a decorative thing as opposed to maybe a flavour thing. Chuck them on there. I've got that turned up back up to medium now. But yeah, it's just a colour thing that we're aiming for here. Close the lid. And we'll round them up. Beautiful. Rightio, we've char grilled the eggplants, just the end of them now. Chuck these on the plate. And then we'll look at layering them. It actually has worked out a lot better doing it this way. Because when I've done it before, I haven't char grilled them, but it's made them thinner, so you might be able to get more layers involved in it, because it does reduce a lot when you've started to cook it in the dish. So a lot of that moisture's come out. A bit of oil in it, but a good colour through it. Helps with the skins. Rightio, put that back down. Oop. Come over here. Just going to grab a couple of things out of the fridge. I didn't want to have the cheese sitting out too long. With a bit of basil. Rightio. Basil from home. Homegrown basil. I got sick of trying to buy it at the shop every week, and I started growing it. And it's quite easy to grow if the bugs don't get to it before you get to start eating it. So just going to do a rough layer of eggplant on the bottom. Fill up the holes best and neat as you can. Don't go overboard with it. And just a little small layer of sauce there. Fill up the holes. Don't go too overboard with that, because as it starts to cook, it'll even out. Just a couple of bits of basil on between layers. Freshen it up. I do love the smell of basil. Bit of cheese between each layers. Don't overdo this either. This is more just a quick layer. You'll do a big layer at the end, but yeah, just a quick bit. I'm also using mozzarella and tasty cheese, because I like the combination of both. They both have their places. A bit more oil comes out of tasty than it does mozzarella. Maybe a bit of pepper on this bit as well. You don't need to add salt to it, because there should be enough salt in the eggplant. Those of you who know me know that I love my pepper, so why not add a bit more in, eh? Beautiful. So just coming up to the last layer now, and since I have fried off those eggplants, I actually managed to get 2 whole eggplants into this. Last time I did it, I added leftover eggplant, and I don't know what you could do with leftover eggplant, but we could have made eggplant chips out of it, but I think in the end we just threw it out. So it's worth doing. It's worth cooking them with that bit to get them to simmer down a bit. This last bit I'm going to add a bit of oregano. If any of it goes into the dish, I'll be impressed. Super windy. Now I'm going to go a thick layer of cheese on this last bit. This is the bit everyone seems to eat, I've noticed, is they go for the top bit. And at the end of the day, you just end up with a lot of soggy tomato and eggplant at the end of the day because everyone's picked off the cheesy bit. It's a nice thick layer. Don't get too large, but why not? Bit more pepper. And we're going to cover the start of it with a bit of alfoil just to help it cook through a bit more. Finish off my basil leaves. When you start to cook, you can smell these basil leaves and it smells amazing. It's very, very decorative. Beautiful. Look at that. I think that's it, right? So I'll grab a bit of alfoil. Attempt to try and grab a bit of alfoil. Rightio. Now, in the meantime, I've left the barbecue on, preheating a bit. Medium heat to high. It's probably going to take maybe 40 minutes to cook. I don't know if you guys are a bit of Weber experts, but I might have forgotten the actual proper trivet tray, but I've made up an aluminium one just to get us by. So yeah, chuck that in there. Let that cook for probably half an hour, 25 minutes. Check it. And if it starts to boil and bubble, might be able to take that aluminium bit off it and then the top. But we'll see how it goes from there. Rightio, that's been about half an hour in the oven. 200 degrees by the dial. But I was about ready to take the alfoil off to crisp up inside. So probably maybe 10 minutes with that off. We'll see how it goes just to get a bit of crispiness on the cheese, but looking good. Put the lid back down and we'll have another go after.